Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Bio News Network. We're actually working on a special report for you. We've been tracking severe storms in central Texas, in the region of East New Mexico, also northwest central Texas, going up into the area of Oklahoma. We anticipate that there'll be additional storms in the region of Oklahoma and Arkansas. As far as the rest of the country is concerned, we do see some shower activity in the region of also Wyoming. We also see additional weather in the northwest, and we'll actually talk a little bit about what's actually going to be happening going into the remainder of this week. So if you're new to this channel, please by all means go ahead and like and subscribe to this. Subscribe to Bio News Network for the latest information about the weather. Here we can see quite a few low pressure system troughing situations in the region of also the northeast, as well as out in the west. We see low pressure system anchored close to Nevada, and also one in the northeast. But if we're taking a closer look at temperatures looking at thunderstorms in the region of Texas, we can actually see a few of the storms that actually picked up earlier today. We can actually see storm activity just a little bit southeast of Abilene, Texas, which has received quite a bit of storm activity over the last few days. We can actually see some of the storm cells actually picking up. We can actually see hail between a half of an inch to an inch in the region. Any of the area actually between the region of Abilene and McKinney, we're trying to take a closer look at Big Country, Concho Valley. And we're actually seeing quite a few severe storms actually develop in that region. But we're actually taking a look at Texas as a whole. You can see in this region also McKinney, Plano, Texas, Dallas should anticipate additional storm activity going into the remainder of today. As far as from the Storm Prediction Center, we do have a marginal risk for Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Austin, Texas, Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. We can actually see the marginal zone for severe threat extending all the way from the state of Texas through Louisiana, through Alabama, Mississippi, into the Carolinas, as well as into Maryland and D.C. And we're looking at primarily Texas for additional storm threats for Lubbock, Abilene, Midland, Texas, Odessa, and San Angelo, Texas, for additional thunderstorm activity. Do keep in mind that that region also overlaps into eastern New Mexico, so we do anticipate that there'll be more storms in the region of Clovis, New Mexico, as well as we saw storm cells even in the region of Santa Fe and Taos, New Mexico earlier today. So we are taking a closer look at storms with intense winds, sizable hail. These are supercell cluster storms that are in the region of eastern New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico, also into western central Texas. Here we have a few storm cells that are actually popping up just a little bit in the region of Santa Fe, also in the region of Mora, Los Alamos, and also Penasco, New Mexico, in the Taos area, Angel Fire area of New Mexico. And these are severe storm cells that are extending. We anticipate that they will eventually start to create some degree of chaos along the Texas Panhandle, going into Oklahoma, later on into the evening, into tonight, possibly some tornado activity. But we do anticipate some tornadoes in the region of west central Texas, and also possibly in eastern New Mexico for the remainder of today going in tomorrow. As far as there being a heat zone in the region of the southeast, extending all the way up to Washington, D.C. We anticipate that that dome of heat, higher temperatures will hover for additional few days with the increased likelihood of heavy rain in the region of the lower Mississippi Valley. We can actually see on our temperature profile here forecast for going into the remainder of the week, going into the weekend for Memorial Day. We can actually see that the southeast is pretty dry with temperatures in the 90s for Georgia, Atlanta, and also the mid 80s for Dallas, as well as all the way across to California in the low 70s, and Florida on the southwest coast of Florida, we're looking at the upper 80s also, but primarily we can see the significant heat on the southeast side. Southeast states such as the Carolinas, they're in the mid 90s, so it's pretty intense heat that is actually enveloped over into the region of the southeast at this particular time. If we take a closer look also, if you can actually take a look at the northern central plain states, Minnesota, also in the region of Iowa, it's relatively cooler compared to the southeast. Here we have, I just wanted to take a closer look at showers that were actually popping up with a possible tornado alert earlier today in the region of Richmond, Maryland. We can clearly see it in the region of Nominee Grove area, Horsehead area of in the region close to Richmond, Maryland area, and we were actually taking a closer look to see if a tornado would actually touch down. And this is primarily Island Inlet area of Richmond, Virginia, and a very, very beautiful area of near Virginia Beach, Hampton, Richmond, Maryland area. So we're definitely taking a closer look to see the significance of these severe thunderstorms in the region, but we do anticipate as Baltimore, Maryland, as well as Washington, D.C. is in the marginal threat zone by the Storm Prediction Center. We can clearly see, as far as the dew points are concerned, for the dew point forecast, that it is very, very saturated in the region of eastern Texas going into southern Louisiana, Arkansas, with dew points in the low 70s. And then we can also see in the region of the upper 70 dew points all the way extending through Kentucky and also Tennessee into West Virginia. And we see that severe threat area in the region of Richmond, Maryland, as well as Washington, D.C. But we do see that this area is primed for severe thunderstorms simply because we do have that saturation and the precipitable water table is alert in this area with high degree of dew point activity extending all the way from eastern Texas all the way up to Washington, D.C. It's clear that this area is under advisory for severe thunderstorms, possibly even tornado activity. And this is going to be priming the southern states such as Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas, Mississippi, as well as Louisiana for heavy rainfall going into next week. As far as severe weather is concerned, I do want to take another closer look at the region of Abilene, in the region of Big Country, Concho Valley. We do anticipate that for residents should be on alert in this region, because we do anticipate with the warm advection of warm air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico that there will be additional storm activity in this region later on into the evening going into Saturday. And we do anticipate that will extend all the way up and through almost like a squall line into the region of Arkansas as well as southern Missouri, going on into the latter part of this of Friday as well as Saturday. But there's definitely a storm alert here for central Texas, eastern Texas, also in the region of western Arkansas going up into Missouri. We can clearly see these cells being formed in the region of Amarillo as well as Lubbock, Texas, Abilene, Texas. We do see that storm cell here on our Doppler radar just between Brownwood and Dallas. And these were cells that were moving in the region of east-southeast, and we do anticipate that there will be additional activity going into the remainder of the day. This is going to be just a precursor for some of the severe weather that we're forming in the central Texas going into in the remainder of this evening into the early mornings. Do keep in mind that we anticipated that there would be pretty much a line of severe weather from the southern eastern New Mexico into the Texas Panhandle, even across to the Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas border, going into the remainder of this week. Also keep in mind that this area is extremely saturated with supercell cluster storm formation for the last few days. So we anticipate going into the weekend, especially with the warm and moist low-level moist air that's in the region, that we anticipate that this area will continue to be under an advisory for marginal threat and also slight risk threat for the regions of Lubbock, Abilene, San Angelo, Texas, Killeen, Waco. We'll be seeing additional scattered thunderstorms with possibility of large hail, very, very intense gusting winds also, but hail is definitely a threat. If we take a closer look also at the Cape values, we like to take a closer look at Cape values going into when we examine the forecast for any storm center, and we do see that Cape values are well within the range of severity. We're looking at low 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. Central Texas, you can see that zone actually extends all the way across to eastern New Mexico. So there's definitely going to be some storm activity brewing for the next 24 hours in this zone that is highlighted with extreme high-level Cape. Of course, there's additional factors that go into the development of severe tornado activity, but Cape values are always a good indicator for meteorologists to take a look at possible severe threat, and we can clearly see that distinct pattern on our forecast. It almost extends all the way up to Washington, D.C. And keep in mind, from the Doppler radar earlier, we saw that there was a tornado advisory in the Richmond, Maryland area. Just to reiterate and highlight the zones that we're looking at for marginal threat going into the weekend, keep in mind we anticipate heavy rain throughout the south. Very saturated zones such as Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia should be on guard for additional rain for this weekend going into early part of next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Marginal threat for Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Austin. Of course, Baltimore, Maryland is still on the radar there, Washington, D.C., but we're primarily taking a closer look at Lubbock, Texas, Abilene, Texas, Midland, Texas, Odessa, Texas, and San Angelo, Texas, going into the remainder of this afternoon for possible tornado threat in central Texas, with storms forming in Oklahoma and Arkansas. But we can clearly see on our precipitation forecast that we see that the low pressure systems just in the region that's anchored in the just over the beautiful state of Illinois is interacting with the upper level atmosphere there, bringing additional storm activity to the region, in the region of Indiana, possibly and Idaho, Indiana region, and Ohio. And we do anticipate that this will bring more severe storms to the region of Kentucky as well as Pennsylvania going into the next 24 to 48 hours. Texas is by no means out of the woods at this particular time. We do anticipate that there'll be more severe threat. We can see right on the border of right on the border of Mississippi as well as Arkansas as well as Tennessee. Severe thunderstorm and tornado, possible tornado cluster of thunderstorms being formed in that region. And here we are working on trying to get through the severity of the thunderstorms with possible tornado threat in central Texas, and right behind this this heavy weather and severe weather is another low pressure trough, and you can actually see it anchored in the region of Nevada. So we anticipate that there'll be additional rain, additional thunderstorm activity going into the weekend. By all means, do subscribe to Bow News Network, and do keep us in mind and keep note of all our notifications for the latest information about severe weather in your neck of the woods. We'll continue to monitor the weather and bring the latest information to you here on Bow News Network. And of all, we want to thank all of our subscribers for tuning in, and do remember that there will be possible heavy rain in the south for next week, and more severe weather for the Plain States is on the way. So thank you for watching Bow News Network, and we do appreciate you tuning in to